Jets fans, the New York Jets are entering the most important stretch of the preseason. The final preseason game is coming against the New York Giants, and after that, the Jets will have to cut the roster down to 53 players. That means every practice rep matters. Every preseason snap matters. And after what we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers, there are some very clear positives. But there is also one problem that could become a serious issue before Week 1. Because while Breece Hall is showing encouraging signs in his recovery, Geno Smith is building momentum, Garrett Wilson is already looking dangerous, and Mason Taylor is quietly having an excellent camp. The Jets still don't appear to have solved their kicking situation, and that could matter a lot more than people realize. So today, we're breaking down the biggest storylines surrounding the New York Jets right now. Let's get into it.
But before we get into it, if you're a die-hard Jets fan, make sure you're subscribed to Jetstream News. We're your go-to source for daily engaging content on all things. Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers this offseason by hitting that subscribe button now.
Let's start with the most important injury update. Breece Hall is back on the field. Hall suffered a groin injury recently, and the initial expectation was that he would miss approximately 2 to 3 weeks. But Aaron Glenn has continued to express confidence that Hall will be ready for Week 1. And now we're seeing Hall running on the field again. He's not back in full team practice yet. That's important. But seeing a running back with a groin injury moving and running is still a very encouraging sign. The biggest question with a groin injury isn't simply whether a player can jog. It's whether he can generate that explosive burst required at the NFL level. For Breece Hall, that's everything. His game is built around acceleration, cutting, explosiveness, and making defenders miss in space. So the next step isn't just seeing him run. It's seeing how he progresses toward football-specific movements and eventually team practice. For now, though, the Jets have to like what they're seeing. And if Hall continues progressing without a setback, the outlook for Week 1 becomes much more encouraging. Breece Hall isn't the only injury situation worth watching. 2 rookies are also approaching their potential return: Kenyon Sadiq and D'Angelo Ponz. Sadiq was seen wearing his helmet during early work with the offense, although he did not participate fully and later moved into the rehabilitation area. That's not a full return, but it's another indication that he's getting closer. And that matters because missing training camp is especially difficult for rookies. This is where young players get their repetitions. They learn the speed of the NFL, they learn the terminology, they build chemistry with teammates, and they make mistakes in a controlled environment before the games actually count. D'Angelo Ponz is also important because the Jets have significant plans for him in the secondary. Aaron Glenn has continued targeting Week 1 for both players, so the Jets don't need to rush either one. They need them healthy. But getting them back into football activities before the regular season would be a major boost. Now let's talk about Geno Smith, because this is one of the biggest changes we've seen over the last few days. Against the Steelers, Geno played only a limited amount, but he looked sharp. And then he followed that up by finishing practice with another impressive sequence. During the move the ball period, Geno reportedly went 5 for 5 and finished the drive with a touchdown pass to Omar Cooper Jr. He also connected with Mason Taylor and Garrett Wilson. And this is exactly what the Jets wanted to see: consistency, poise, accuracy, and the willingness to push the ball downfield. There was a lot of noise earlier about whether the Jets should consider starting rookie quarterback Cade Klubnik. But this is where context matters. Being excited about Klubnik doesn't mean you have to start him immediately. The Jets drafted Klubnik because they believe he can become important to the future. But the 2026 season is here now, and Geno Smith gives the Jets something a rookie simply cannot provide: experience. The Jets need to give Geno the opportunity to establish himself. If he plays well, the conversation becomes very simple. This is his team. And we need to address another storyline: Omar Cooper Jr. Because some people were already starting to question him after the first preseason game. That was premature, very premature. Cooper was a first-round pick for a reason, and one preseason game isn't going to erase the evaluation that led the Jets to select him. More importantly, Cooper has been getting opportunities, and now we're seeing him make plays. The touchdown at the end of practice was exactly the type of moment Jets fans wanted to see. Geno delivered the ball over the middle, Cooper made the play, and suddenly, people are talking about him again. That's how quickly the NFL narrative changes. One week, people ask if a player's a bust. The next week, everyone wants to know why the coaching staff isn't using him more. But here's the reality: the Jets aren't going to reveal their entire offensive playbook during the preseason. Frank Reich has no reason to show opposing defenses everything Cooper can do. So don't judge the rookie based on statistics alone. Watch the roots, watch the separation, Watch where the coaching staff puts him, and watch how his role develops when the regular season begins. And then there's Garrett Wilson. Honestly, what else can you say? The man continues to make difficult football look easy. Against Pittsburgh, Wilson only had one reception, but that one reception doesn't tell the story. The route did. Wilson created separation on a third down play after Geno extended the play. And when you watch the full route, you understand why people are so excited about him. Wilson's ability to stop suddenly, change direction, and manipulate defenders is special. Two Steelers defenders had leverage. They appeared to have the advantage. But Wilson completely changed the picture with his route. That ability is what makes him so dangerous. And now he's entering another season with Geno Smith throwing him the football. If Geno can consistently deliver accurate passes, Wilson has an opportunity to have another massive season. And the Jets desperately need that, because a productive Garrett Wilson makes everything else easier. Now here's the player I think deserves much more attention, Mason Taylor. Taylor has quietly put together a very solid training camp and preseason, and sometimes solid gets interpreted as boring. It shouldn't. For the Jets, reliable is extremely valuable. Taylor has already shown strong hands. He can work underneath. He can find space. He can contribute on third down. And he can do the dirty work that doesn't always show up on a stat sheet. Against Pittsburgh, Taylor made another important third down reception. And this is where his potential role becomes interesting. Frank Reich has a long history of utilizing tight ends. So don't expect the Jets to simply have one tight end catching passes while everyone else watches. The Jets have multiple players who can contribute. Jeremy Ruckert continues to make plays. Jeremy Ruckert and Kenny Yeboah give the group additional depth. And when Kenyon Sadiq returns, the position becomes even more interesting. Mason Taylor doesn't need to become Travis Kelce overnight. He just needs to become dependable. And that's exactly what we're starting to see. Now let's get to the negative, because this is where Jets fans should actually be concerned. The kicking battle isn't looking good. Jason Sanders went 2 for 5. Cade York went 3 for 5. That's simply not good enough. And the problem isn't just missing kicks during practice. The problem is that the Jets need to know who their kicker is going to be when Week 1 arrives. Close NFL games are often decided by 3 points, sometimes 1 point, sometimes a field goal in the final seconds. The Jets cannot enter the regular season hoping their kicker figures things out. And that's why the possibility of General Manager Darren Mauge searching outside the organization makes sense. There will be kickers available. Other teams will make roster cuts. Some players currently competing elsewhere will become available. The Jets need to evaluate every option, because this is one position where good enough isn't good enough. After the final preseason game, the NFL roster landscape changes dramatically. Players get released. Teams make difficult decisions. And suddenly, a player who wasn't available yesterday becomes available today. That's where the Jets can potentially improve. Maybe Sanders wins the job. Maybe York turns things around. Or maybe neither player does enough and the Jets bring in someone else. The next few days could answer that question. And honestly, I'd rather see the Jets make that decision now than regret it in Week 4. The Jets now have one more preseason game against the New York Giants. And this game is going to be important for players fighting for roster spots. Not necessarily for the established stars. The biggest battles are happening underneath them. Which young defensive players have done enough? Which receivers deserve to stay? Which running backs separate themselves? Which tight ends make the final roster? And perhaps most importantly, who proves they belong on special teams? The Jets are about to make some very difficult decisions. That's the reality of the NFL. You can have a great training camp and still not make the 53-man roster. One bad game doesn't necessarily erase months of work. But one great performance can absolutely change a player's future. And then there's the bigger picture. The Jets open the regular season against the Tennessee Titans, and suddenly, the picture is becoming much clearer. Geno Smith looks like the quarterback who should start. Garrett Wilson looks ready to be the centerpiece of the passing game. Mason Taylor is developing into a reliable option. Braylon Allen provides another weapon in the backfield. And the Jets are waiting for Breece Hall to complete his recovery. Defensively, Aaron Glenn is still evaluating young players and waiting for key rookies to return. There are questions. There are still roster battles. But there's also something we haven't seen enough of from the Jets in recent years. A sense of direction. Jets fans, this team is entering the most important week of the preseason. Breece Hall is progressing. Kenyon, Sadiq, and D'Angelo Pons are getting closer. Geno Smith is building momentum. Omar Cooper Jr. is showing why the Jets drafted him. Garrett Wilson continues to look special. Mason Taylor is quietly becoming one of the most reliable young players on the offense. But the kicking situation? That's the problem. The Jets need to solve it. Because everything else can look great, but if you don't trust your kicker when the game is on the line, you're leaving wins on the table. And with the roster deadline approaching, Darren Mauge has some difficult decisions ahead. The Giants game is next, then comes the 53-man roster. And after that, the games finally count. So the preseason is almost over. The real test is about to begin. Jets fans, what is the biggest storyline for you right now? Is it Breece Hall's recovery? Geno Smith? Omar Cooper Jr.? Garrett Wilson? Mason Taylor? Or is the kicking situation your biggest concern? Let me know in the comments. And if you want the latest New York Jets news, training camp updates, roster battles, injuries, and breaking news, subscribe to Jetstream News. The preseason is almost over. Now we're about to find out what this Jets team is really made of. Let's go, Jets! Thanks for watching.